Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. Hey, do me a favor, hit that like button. It helps me so very much. We have yet to read exactly how Debbie Collier died. The Habersham County Sheriff's Office originally said it was personal and targeted, and we heard this week from the Habersham County Sheriff's Office that the investigators there have been treating Collier's death as a case of foul play all along. We also read in another article that unnamed sources said to be close to the investigation are hinting that Collier may have done this to herself. At this point, I have to say, I feel like a ping pong ball that's been getting beaten back and forth across the net. So today, instead of saying what I think about foul play versus an accident versus unaliving, I want to talk about the strangest detail, at least in my opinion, of the crime scene. This is one element in the case that has been described the same way since day one, and that is Debbie Collier being found with her right hand gripping a small tree. Calling this the strangest detail says a lot because so many details of this case are off the chart oddities. In trying to understand why Debbie Collier may have reached over and grabbed that tree, I've kicked around various ideas. Note that learning that Debbie had soot in her nostrils has affected the way I'm thinking about the position in which she was found, namely on her back, topless, her shoes still on, and her feet pointing downward toward the ravine. The soot tells me that she was alive when the fire was lit, and she inhaled smoke from it. By the way, this could even be the cause of Debbie Collier's death, smoke inhalation. Here are the theories I've been kicking around to explain why Debbie was found with her hand gripping that tree. 1. Maybe her hand was staged there by the perpetrator, and then rigor mortis kicked in and her hand held tight. Rigor mortis is the Latin term for post-mortem rigidity. Rigor means stiffness, and mortis means death. This theory isn't really that strong, though, in my opinion, because A, why would a perpetrator care if Debbie's hand was gripping a tree unless the perpetrator enjoys posing victims and messing with the heads of true crime followers? And B, Debbie's hand would likely not have stayed there if a perpetrator placed it there after she died. I would think the perpetrator would have had to prop the hand there, or, sorry to say this, duct tape it there, and when full rigor mortis set in hours later, only then would the hand stay there all by itself. Sorry, I know this is a tragic case, and I'm not trying to make fun of it by talking about duct tape. I'm just honestly trying to understand. 2, I also considered that maybe Debbie fell for whatever reason and suddenly found herself sliding down the embankment on her back, and to prevent herself from going all the way down, she reached out and grabbed the tree. I think this one is plausible regardless of whether her manner of death is ruled the result of foul play or an accident, or an unaliving situation. 3, maybe Debbie was trying to get away from the hot, painful fire as she found herself lying prone on the ground, unable to sit up or stand up, and the small tree was something sturdy to use to pull herself while on her back toward safety. This could be true in both a foul play scenario and an accident or unaliving situation. But if this was an unaliving situation, then she would either have had to change her mind mid-act, or a natural survival instinct that was stronger than her desire to die would have had to have kicked in. 4, maybe Debbie was trying to pull herself up from the ground to get back on her feet in order to flee, perhaps after a perpetrator left the scene. And maybe the pain on her abdomen prevented her from successfully pulling off this maneuver. That would make the most sense in a foul play scenario. Have you guys also wondered about this? Do you have any theories about it? If so, please let me know what they are in the comments. I was also texting back and forth with another YouTuber who is a nurse practitioner and thus someone who knows a whole lot about the human body, and she mentioned something known as a death grip. The name immediately gripped me, and I wanted to know more about it. So there I was at 10 o'clock at night, cramming Halloween candy in my mouth and Googling the words death grip. As an adult, I despise Halloween just because of the ever-present candy and the temptation. My husband buys these giant bags way ahead of time, and then I'm sniffing around to see what's in them. It's not good. So anyway, while I was Googling, the first thing that popped up, which, by the way, was not the meaning that this YouTuber meant to share with me, was a syndrome in which a male person suffers the adverse effects of using an aggressive and recurrent self-pleasuring technique. I was like, what is this? No, no, no. This is not what my buddy was telling me about. And my goodness, there were so many articles about this type of death grip that I started thinking maybe this is the only type of death grip. But I was determined to find the other meaning for death grip, so I ignored all these articles, which could have led me down a whole nother rabbit hole for hours stuffing candy in my mouth. Finally, I found the definition that I was interested in. So this second definition of death grip is as follows: an extremely tight grip, such as that exerted by people in a panic for fear for their life, end quote. And this definition made a lot of sense to me in relationship to Debbie Collier's death. I can't help but still feel that she died as a result of foul play. I'm not saying an accident or an unaliving aren't possible, but it's very hard for me to believe that she would end her life during such a strange out-of-town journey. So was Debbie Collier in such a panic for her life that her final movement was to reach out and grab that small tree and cling to it as hard as she could, perhaps in hopes of somehow beating out death, getting away, and surviving? Doesn't that seem logical? But I'm still perplexed. Would her hand have stayed there after she passed away? I know she would have been gripping the small tree very tightly in that death grip, but wouldn't her hand fall down after she took her last breath? Like the way people are shown dying in the movies? They suddenly just go limp, and gravity makes the dead weight of the hand just fall down to the ground. I mentioned rigor mortis earlier, but let me touch on it again in relationship to this hand gripping the tree. According to a white paper entitled Methods of Estimation of Time Since Death on the National Library of Medicine website, rigor mortis appears approximately 2 hours after death in the muscles of the face. So that's just the muscles of the face. It takes longer for the rest of the body to go into rigor mortis. According to this white paper, rigor mortis then progresses to the limbs over the next few hours and is complete by between 6 to 8 hours after death. The body will then remain stiff in rigor mortis for another 12 hours after that. And then, after those 24 hours or so go by, rigor mortis disappears and the body once again becomes pliable and limp. According to the white paper, rigor mortis generally disappears completely 36 hours after death, and it is then followed by a phase known as secondary flaccidity, flaccid meaning limp. And no, I haven't switched topics suddenly back to the other definition of death grip. I'm still talking about definition 2, just a little T-style levity here, because this is quite a morbid topic. I would love to talk to a forensic pathologist who could help me understand how Debbie's hand defied gravity and the immediate limpness of death to remain clinging to that tree trunk. You know what? I'm going to ask Joseph Scott Morgan. I mean, it would have taken at least 3 to 4 hours after death for her hand to stiffen into a grip like that via rigor mortis. I guess this death grip is really better defined as a grip that defies death. The hand remains gripped even right after a person passes away, when the rest of the body goes limp and becomes dead weight, no pun intended. Then that death grip turns almost into cold stone when rigor mortis sets in 3 to 4 hours or more after death, and it remains that way for 12 hours after that, only to still be in a gripped position even when the body returns to the flaccid state. That's my understanding at this point. I'm not a doctor. Where's Dra Latina when you need her? I might have to contact her before I talk to Joseph Scott Morgan. That would be a really interesting conversation, wouldn't it? Talk about the hand grip with Dra Latina. Until the next time on Bed Crime Stories, now hit that like button, subscribe, leave me a comment, look at my merchandise, consider a membership, yada, yada, yada. Love you guys.